Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It is me, Dukect T, back once again, the Dukect Lounge. How are you doing? Hope you're feeling good this evening. I got a guest here talking about a very interesting subject: RSNs, regional sports networks, and I have to get one of my, good sports nerd type friends here, Chris Moore, aka Rowdy C. How you doing?
Yo, and hello, all my rowdy friends. Glad to be back here on the lounge.
Yes, and this let me tell you, it has been one of the most quite honestly, this is a story that has been um just it's slowly gotten last year people have talked about and everything else, but now we have this is one of the big stories that people are like finally getting into, and it's happening with my local stuff here. um this new T-Wood network here of right here in the Capsules and the Wizards and the Mystics have their channel. It's because basically a dang let's see if we get rid of this thing. It's basically um the entire stuff here of regional sports. I mean, we have a monumental sports thing here, and it is did you get anything like that happen to you, your local stuff, Rowdy? Like,
Oh, absolutely. Look, and this thing is, I look at the situation that's going on here, and it might not be exactly, but it kind of reminds me of, because this is something you could probably identify with, was basically how the slow build up and eventual demise of what started as the National Wrestling Alliance becoming World Championship Wrestling and its eventual downfall in around the turn of the century. Because at least our local cable sports network here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I mean, I can remember all the way back to the late 80s, early 90s, when we would get most of the Texas Rangers and Dallas Mavericks games, whatnot, on what was known as home sports entertainment. Now, that network eventually got bought up and was changed. The official name was changed to Prime Sports. That lasted maybe about a couple of years until Fox bought up so many of these regional networks across the entire country and eventually created the network of Fox RSNs, and in this area created what was known as Fox Sports Southwest. And it remained like that for many years until only about, of course, the time finally came when Rupert Murdoch, when Fox was essentially bought up by Disney. And of course, the strangest thing of all that happened to that was the fact that the RSNs were included as part of the package, which actually surprised me quite a bit because Murdoch did retain ownership of the more nationally based FS1 and FS2 channels there, which tells me, as I'll be getting into maybe in a little bit, that perhaps Murdoch did see the writing on the wall as to how much longer the RSNs were going to have any type of strength whatsoever. But the eventual thing was that, yes, Disney included, the RSNs were included in the purchase to Disney, but then Disney has to immediately divest themselves of these networks because Disney already owns ESPN. So the one entity that ends up being able to purchase the RSNs from Disney is Sinclair Media. And that's where they bought up Fox Sports Southwest and the others, and eventually they get sponsorship and they change it to Bally Sports. And of course, there's no really kind way to say this. Sinclair Media's handling of the RSNs has been an absolute disaster. They basically almost use them to hold cable providers for ransom, almost, where they basically dropped Bally Sports from all of the streaming TV networks like Sling TV, Hulu Live, YouTube TV, the likes. And then in a war of attrition almost took them off all of the cable satellite providers except for AT&T DirecTV. So it got to a point where you had to have DirecTV in order to get your local sports. Now, eventually they did cave in, and one way or another, a deal was struck where I know that you could get them on Fubo TV, which is what I've had for the last couple of years, especially for that. But Yeah, it's definitely the fact that these networks are more or less declaring bankruptcy. It's already majorly affected because both the Rangers and the Mavericks have more or less declared that their relationship with Bally Sports is going to be over by the end of 2024, maybe sooner. It's still up in the air as to whether or not Bally Sports will carry the Texas Rangers games next season. And when you're talking about the fact that, because I get the opportunity to show this once again, now you're talking about the defending World Series champions. The fact that they might not have a television, we don't know where their television home might be next season. This is a big damn issue.
Oh yeah, and not only that, you have other baseball teams. Right here, for example, right here is that the Bailey Sports plans to drop the Cincinnati Reds after next year, and then you go because how you're going to grow new fans in that place? Because the Reds have been getting better, and now they're completely in that type of you know, not just the Reds, but the hockey, Columbus Blue Jackets, the Cleveland NBA, and Cleveland Cavaliers, all this other stuff. And now just Diamond, Baylor Sports is going to be filed for bankruptcy since like last March. What's going to happen for these other teams?
Well,
Because right now you have at least like, for example, there's like local other stuff is trying to do the other stuff here. I mean, like I said, Monumental Sports, they're doing stuff here locally, but everywhere else, it's just going to be, because again, Bailey Sports Ohio has a long-term 15-year contract with the Reds, and if they just stop operating, it's done. How long does it take for them to actually put things up online?
That's a big issue because I could tell you from experience, like the Rangers, they signed a ginormous deal with Fox, with at the time Fox Sports Southwest, that I think took effect back in 2014. And this is a situation where, like I said, I'm a sports guy, but also I'm a television guy. That my whole shtick is I review bad TV shows on the internet, so I try to keep a pulse on the television market and whatnot to the best of my knowledge. That being said, I'm not any type of economics guy. I will admit that right here and now. However, there's a term that's used. It's called infinite growth, and how anybody with half a brain will tell you that's an impossibility. Nothing can grow absolutely forever. And that's when I started to see all of not just the Rangers, not just the Reds, there were a number of Major League Baseball teams that were signing these huge deals with the RSNs. And I could just tell, saying, this is not going to last forever. There is going to come a time, when you just look at the fact that, especially in this age of more and more people, as they say, cutting the cord when it comes to cable and satellite television. I just looked at this things and how much money was being thrown around here and said, someone is losing money on these deals. And eventually, that person, one way or another, is going to stand up and say, enough is enough. And it's going to start a domino effect. And that's essentially what we are seeing right now, is what basically happened was, Bally Sports and Sinclair Media tried to hold up the cable providers and the satellite providers to get as much money as they can to put them back on their providers. And many of these providers had to balk at the ideas because they knew that if we have to pay this network this much more money, we're gonna have to raise our rates by X amount of dollars in order to make up that. And we're in a situation where people are already dropping our services. If we raise the price, that's only going to drop even more. So it was a situation where you just could easily see this thing coming. Now, I will say this: there's one group of one sports league that hasn't made any public statements about this so far. It is the NHL teams. I have yet to hear anything from the Dallas Stars about their future with Bally Sports Southwest. And for all we know, the NHL teams might be the last gasp that at least the network can use to stay active even as they go into bankruptcy. That being said, losing the MLB teams is a huge blow, because when you have the rights to a Major League Baseball club, that is 162 live broadcasts guaranteed for you every year. And in this day and age, where live telecast and live content is at as much of a premium as anywhere else, that you be able to lose 162 live broadcasts, that's a huge chunk that's going to severely hurt you.
Oh yeah, and not only that, but when you look at these RNNs and the lack, I remember this because I was listening to, I think I was on SPDN, the Steve Dangle like podcast, all the stuff, and I listened to Jesse Blake's sports show a couple weeks ago, and this was when the team, the Leafs were in Sweden and they were playing against like other teams and such, and they couldn't like watch the game. They could not actually legally watch the game. The KSN was, or you can't watch this, you couldn't do that. It's to me the shows that these cable companies are so behind, because people are gonna say, well, they're gonna sail the high seas. They're gonna leave, and then that's gonna have less money in their pocket and do all this type of stuff. It's like they just don't get it. These corporations don't get it. They're very slow in the uptake. And not only that, I think Jesse Blake pointed this out. He pointed this out that one of the most great wrestlers, Eric Young, from WE, TNA, and all that stuff. He wanted to sit back and watch a. He's in Tennessee. He wants to watch the hockey team there, and he couldn't do it.
Nashville Predators.
Yeah, he could not legally do it. He's in Tennessee. He's in the state, and he couldn't watch it. So what do you do if you're not signed up with these RSNs? Like, I mean, in fact, it affects me as well too, because even I am signed up to Monumental Sports and such. If it's games on ESPN Plus, I can't watch the game. I can't watch that, and it just keeps getting, it's just segmented to these things, and it's to me horrible, because once again you're just basically segmenting your own audience, and that's going to probably cost the NHL and all, because you know what, the NHL wasn't ready for this. They're still not ready for it. Because of the stuff that happened like last year and everything else. The NBA seems to be ready to do this. In fact, baseball right now, they're looking like saying, hey, let me just see if I can find a story here. The San Diego Tribune right here. He said their MLB will stream and broadcast games. They will stream them themselves to lift local blackouts.
Yeah,
and that's when I'm like, the MLB seems to be like, we're gonna have some rough edges. We're gonna get here. The NBA, they had success with the interleague tournament, which I'm happy for. That's good. People are watching. But they seem to have some type of like, okay, once our TV deal gets placed, there's probably going to be some with streaming as well. But the NHL, I sit and I worry, because they're like, they are blindsided. And I think they're going to be very slow in the uptake. And anyway, this is up in Canada, by the way. They, which, TSN and Sportsnet and all that stuff. If they can't get it, I'm like, we're hoping any American broadcasting stuff is going to get it and such. So I worry, because the NHL seems to be on that, they're going to get blindsided. And I wouldn't be surprised in a couple years from now, you're going to have teams and people locally are like, I want to watch it, but they can't actually do it other than, sailing the high seas. Yeah, it's going to be the NHL's fault.
Yeah, but on the flip side, you brought this up, and I was going to mention it myself. If there is one thing, is that it does look like Major League Baseball is doing their best to prepare for this. I've actually gotten into some pretty heated arguments with with one or two friends of mine on Facebook and the like, who the other people who have been extremely critical of MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred. But I think if there's any, and look, I'm not going to say the guy's perfect, but I think one thing that Manfred has gotten right, along with the, of course, the rules changes to baseball, which is a whole other topic for what it's worth. But I do think that Manfred has been just as frustrated as the fans are with yes, these blackout restrictions and everything that Bally Sports did to more or less try and force people to subscribe to the local cable station or whatnot here. And because, look, you can say what you want about Manfred and the owners and whatnot, but I think they know more than anything else. If the people are not able to watch the games, they don't have anything. And what I've always maintained is that for all the faults, especially of the owners, I don't think that they at the time they signed the exclusive contracts, all they saw were dollar signs. I get that. I understand that. Could not have known, at least back then, even as recently as 2014, just how much the trend of people dropping cable and satellite TV was going to be. And when they did that, now they suddenly found themselves backed into a corner with these exclusive TV deals. Though for what it's worth, is like I said, MLB is apparently stepping in. It says they are going to create their own network to broadcast and stream the games. Yeah, you did mention the Padres. I think maybe Cleveland is going to be going down that road. I did just recently see an article where one way or another, the Minnesota Twins are going to now start having broadcasts that will not be blacked out in any way, shape, or form. I don't know if that's still on their RSN or not. I'd have to double check that. But yeah, it does at least seem like the MLB teams are trying to prepare for what is to come. I have not yet seen any declaration on where the Rangers expect to go from now, nor the Mavericks, who's, like I said, just recently in the last few days declared that they're pretty much looking for a way off of Bally Sports as well. But the big question here is this, and this is the number one concern I think a lot of people will have here, is how is this going to affect the revenue streams? And with that, the player salaries, especially, because for anyone who is not in the know, television revenue, it has for many years been the number one source of revenue that the player salaries are generated from. And at the moment, I just don't see an option where major league teams are going to be able to get as much money as they were getting with these regional sports networks deals. That's going to affect everyone's issue. That's why I am going to be concerned there's may be some very harsh and intense labor disputes coming up for not both the NBA and Major League Baseball in that regard. And a lot of people are thinking that the predicted drop in revenue streams was probably a big reason why almost the impossible was announced in the last day or couple of days, where it was announced that Mark Cuban is selling a majority stake in the Mavericks off, which he said he was never going to do. But I think he may be seeing the writing on the wall as to how less profitable Major League Sports are going to end up getting in the next few years, especially because these regional sports network deals are basically ended up going to be just not worth the paper they're printed on.
Oh, yeah. And then it gets to streaming. We just had the huge actors and writers strike talking about the revenues were there for streaming. And a lot of people are worried because maybe the revenues don't actually exist. And I talked to people about, this and, other people that just says there's no money in that type of streaming now. Because again, the whole situation is just all there's no real actual money.
Well, it's different. It is different here.
It is. I worry that it's going to be the same issue in a couple years from now when the players.
Maybe not in this. I will say this in this regard, and this is something I've talked about as to why, in comparison to why I thought that the major entertainment streaming networks, as we'll put them, Disney Plus, Peacock, Max, and the like. The main reason I've had my own theories as to why those haven't made money and probably why they should have gone in a different direction in hindsight. But the big difference is you have to remember is that the sports streaming networks, again, that's almost all live content. And that is, like I said, that is the premium to look for more than anything else. Also, I think it's going to be a bit more simplified as to, excuse me, if there is revenue generated, where that revenue is all going to go into, especially where it would. I will say this, yeah, it's definitely going to be a the big issue I think that will come in possible future labor discussions is they're obviously the players are going to be wanting their share in whatever revenue might be generated. In order to get that to happen, they're going to have to force the owners, particularly in baseball, to do something they've never wanted or liked to do, and that is finally open up their books as to how much revenue they are actually generating compared to costs, i.e., whether or not the teams are actually making or losing money. That's the number one concern that I would have. I think that if they can, especially with streaming, that if the leagues can present a package that is easy to understand and subscribe to. And that's a big if, I'll say that much, because we have no idea if they're going to be able to successfully do this or not. But if they can, the revenue just might be there, especially if people continue to, especially if people like myself, that live sports was basically the only reason we were keeping any type of even TV streaming package, let alone cable or satellite. That was the only reason. And it is now possible that we could drop those packages entirely and get a solo sports streaming package for less. If they sell it right and get the right price for it, the money could be there. The only question there is whether or not the owners and the players can come to a decent agreement as to how much, especially the players, will get the share of that new revenue pie.
Well, yeah. Honestly, you can say anything else, but the NFL probably is the smart one because they never had to deal with RSNs, and they just did the year two and the Amazon Prime deal. Basically, has been a big. You can make fun of the games and how it is. I honestly think that what they did was probably pretty smart. They made the Prime, that it just everyone goes to Prime to watch that, and that I think what streaming service right now is going to have to be that going forward. I don't think ESPN is going to do it like Disney because right now they're struggling because I think the bad management over there. Warner Brothers Discovery. If Zaslav, I think Zaslav's could have a big opportunity. They just putting Bleacher Report on HBO Max, which has more subscribers on that than like a Peacock with the NFL and WE and all that type of stuff. But he's busy just slicing and burning things to the ground. I don't know that thing's going to even survive or something like that in the next couple of years. Are they going to have new management take that stuff? That the Warner Brothers stuff too. So is it going to be which is going to be who is going to take that next leap? Because again, the NBA is looking to shop their deals right now. I mean, who is going to really take that like next really big step? Because when 2024 is going to be a big end for it, but I think in 2025 and 2026 when these deals are coming up, you're going to see. I wouldn't because right now there's rumors that Netflix are looking to get into live sports. Are they going to make an NHL package? Are they going to actually say, here we are, we're going to do live sports. We're going to put our stuff out there. Will Peacock put more money into sports and such? I mean, YouTube spent a ransom to get the NFL and the Sunday Ticket from DirecTV. Who would have thought that would be possible? Who would have thought that YouTube actually put the money up to actually make this to make their steps into actually more legitimacy? It's not like getting look, I know people love the Karate Kid, the new stuff, but let's be honest, the Karate Kid and whatever stuff that we're doing, these little YouTube red shows weren't going to do it. They needed to make a really big splash, and what they did. So the two sports are out there right now is Major League Baseball and hockey. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of those big streaming stuff is going to just say, here, right, you know what? we're gonna make our stuff exclusive to. Ancho might say, "Screw it, we might make our stuff exclusive to Netflix."
Well,
Or
here's
the
the thing.
NBA might be saying, "We're going to go." They're going to not only sign with, they're going to keep NBA tonight. They're going to say, "We're going to put that all to streaming." That's what's going to probably happen.
Here's the
That's what
concern.
it is.
Here's the concern I have that you brought up the NFL, and for all the criticisms I have of that sport and that league, and as a whole of the situation, the NFL has always been a very unique situation where they only play once a week, 16, 17 weeks, 18 weeks a year, not including the playoffs. And because they have such a relatively small number of games, that's like 16 games a week during the season, spread out, most of them on Sunday. That's why I think what they've had the advantage of more or less the league being able to control all of the television broadcasts for the entire league. No NFL team has its own local broadcast network like MLB and NHL and NBA clubs do. The NFL controls all of the television side of their league, but they can do that again because they only have to handle 16 games, or maybe even 15 games in one particular week, and they can split that out through, I believe, the big four networks. I think if one of them, like CBS, NBC, Fox, and ESPN/ABC, all carry at least one game a year or one game a week during the entire season. For something like an MLB or NHL or NBA, and the main thing is that they're all on mainstream networks. The NFL is, so those networks can set aside one particular day during the fall to reserve for sports, but then have the rest of the week to put aside their own programming there. So that's a good deal for those networks. When you're talking about something like Major League Baseball, or which plays, like I said, every team plays 162 games a year, or even just the NBA, which plays 82 games a year, you're going to have to be on a network that almost is exclusive sports. That's the only way that it can work. And yeah, like, would ESPN be willing to create a ginormous mega operations network where they would control and manage all of the telecasts for even half the MLB clubs in the nation, and then possibly leave FS1 to handle, or if there is an NBC Sports Network version now anymore, which I know that originally closed down or whatnot. But yeah, that's something that I think that's the major difficult thing, is that something, and that's why maybe the best situation, and I don't know how, and again, can't say if they're going to generate anywhere close to as much revenue as they used to with this. It's where you may have to result in the teams themselves creating their own streaming network. Maybe in addition to, you maybe put a handful of games back onto one of the local stations in town to try and sell like it used to be. They may have to go to something like that. But again, I just don't see if it's going to generate the revenue that they were able to get with the RSNs. Which the RSNs, they were paying more than they could afford anyway, which is what has resulted in this whole situation.
Oh yeah, and then you look at what their other owners are doing right now. You talk about Mark Cuban doing it, but also the Rockets and Astros in Houston. They actually teamed up to buy AT&T SportNet Southwest from Warner Brothers Discovery, and they rebranded the Space City Home Network. And now they're basically going to like the rights fees and all this stuff here. Padres, like I said earlier, the MLB is going to take the over the Cubs broadcast, and this is going to be one of the big issues if the cable services, they said like how they're going to the streaming all this other stuff, Padres, all this stuff, because right now the cable is in this very dire at this point, because people are going to these other streaming services, going to people watching, getting different other stuff. And again, who do you think is going to be in that big position to say, all right, we're going to Since I think the NBA is going to, who are they going to actually sit there? I mean, the NBA is going to basically make a deal to that. And now we have another issue. What happens to the local stuff too? What happens to the local arena? What happens to the local stuff here? Because again, people love their local sports broadcast. What are you going to do to the local sports broadcast, and how are you going to really connect those things? Because again, is it going to be like they're going to just say, okay, here's the national game, it's all going to be there live, you can pick it? Are they going to fire all the local teams, or are they going to basically say, keep doing what you're doing until the postseason?
I'll keep we'll keep in mind, like I said, I can tell you this. The previous the way it was handled, the situation for many years was the network handled much of the technical aspects of the broadcast themselves, but the announcers were employed by the team themselves. And I would not be surprised if something like that will continue to go on. I think you're still going to have like as much as some people here in North Texas would cringe at this, I think whatever the Rangers end up broadcasting, you're still going to have Dave Raymond and CJ Nikowski on the local television broadcast of the team. It's like, whatever would happen to the radio side of it, the Rangers might end up in a different radio station one day, but as long as he's still willing to do it, you're still going to hear Eric Nadel on there. I think that's the situation of the announcers won't change that much. If anything, just because whoever takes over control of the broadcast themselves won't have to pay those guys. The teams will be responsible for their pay and everything. That would probably be a big issue. But what just ultimately comes down to me is I keep thinking about how in the olden days, I like to say that, you remember, television, sports on television wasn't considered to be that important, really. I mean, for many years, televised sports broadcasts were treated as little more than infomercials, where the entire point of putting the game on television was to try to encourage people to go out and buy tickets and attend the games in person, because that was where all the real money was going. It's just somewhere down the line in the last 40 to 50 years or so, like somehow networks got the idea that they could actually make a lot of money off of televised sports. But it is looking like those days are coming to an end. And it's just going to be a matter of how do the leagues and the sport and the teams adjust to that situation.
That is true. And again, this was coming, and I think it is the team. I think the MLB and the NBA are going to be fine. I think what the NBA is going to set the tone, because they're going to have a new TV deal. They're going to negotiate, and where they go, I truly think if they do this right, which I think they're going to do it right, they are going to set the tone. My worry meter goes in NHL, because I'm like, the way they handle things, I'm like, I don't think they know what they're gonna do. They're just hoping and praying that, okay, we'll be on TNT and all this other stuff which they have, and maybe Netflix will throw them a bone or something. I think they're wishing for something to happen, but that maybe not happen.
You may be right about the NHL, and I do think you're right about the NBA. I think they eventually may come out of this okay. If anything, just because for the most part, the NBA seems to still maintain a decent working relationship with its players' union. I'm really concerned about Major League Baseball in the next few years, just because of the fact that I think there is going to be a very heated dispute as to how much the owners are going to demand, because the owners will at least will claim there won't be as much money coming in, will be demanding major reductions in salary from the players and the players union. And I really worry as to whether or not the players are going to be willing to accept that, because you still worry if especially the relationship between the players and the owners. I'm not sure if it's recovered ever since the collusion conspiracies of the 1980s, which the players will tell you to this day is why they were so hard line and went on strike in 1994. Even that their lack of trust in the owners drove to that. And we even had a labor stoppage back around 2022 or 23, I believe it was, that even they managed to get it done to a point where they didn't lose any games, even though they had to push the season back by about a week or so. But yeah, I am really concerned that at the very least, there is going to be a serious labor battle coming in the next few years in Major League Baseball, specifically over the fact that so many teams lost their huge, highly lucrative cable television deals, and the claims that they're going to try, the owners are going to try their best to make the players take the biggest hit financially from that, while trying to keep as much money of all the other revenue streams for themselves.
Oh yeah, and you look at what happened. We're talking about Major League Baseball. You look at San Diego Padres. They now basically they've borrowed a ton of money, over $50 million, a $50 million loan to meet payroll obligations, and now they basically can't afford this stuff. They can't do anything. They can't actually say, okay, now we can't. They can't really pay their players. So basically, it's a fire sale that's going on now. It's just this stuff here. It's continuing. They're going to just my that's what my that this could be not just for for this one baseball team. What's going to happen if this stuff continues in NHL teams or NBA teams? Because remember, there was like a stoppage because there have been NBA players were making way too much, and the owners were overpaying them to the point they were like, "Oh crap, we are running our franchises into the dirt." And I'm like, this could be a repeat showing of this. So I think that with the RSNs and everything else, because this might not be the MLB might not have the only work stoppage.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
I think with the NHL, which right now what they're doing, because again, it's just teetering, like very tense stuff that's going on. I look at what's going on with like the penalty situation. The suspended players only get what, $5,000 fines and such. Seriously, $5,000. That's going to change things. And not only that is that the Olympic situation. They want to bring back the Olympics and all that type of stuff, and in the world state, all this type of stuff here. And I think once the money stops coming in from these RSNs, they're going to go on strike. At the NBA, I think they're in a really good. I think the NBA is the least worried about the strike, since I think the players union and the NBA owners are okay. But I think the NHL and the MLB, I would not be surprised if both of those would just say those. I think those player unions are going to probably walk out. There's going to be another lockout. I would not be surprised because of this.
It's a very I'm trying to find the exact word to look for. It's very strenuous. I don't think the word I'm looking for, a strenuous situation that's going to be in the next few years to try and figure out what's going on. And all I can say is, yeah, I'm not trying to brag here or anything, but it's something I did see coming. Like, I just saw how much money was being thrown around, especially due to the money given from these sports networks, TV sports networks, at a time when people were cutting cable and satellite TV and thinking that this just can't keep going up like this. Everything has to have a coming down point for the most part. And I think that a lot of major league sports are approaching that situation. It actually may come to a sense where I said the leagues that only play like once a week, like the NFL and like European soccer for the most part, are maybe going to be in the best situation because they can get on networks that can put them on and still have plenty of room for their own programming, so to speak. Those are the leagues that may, in the next few years, may be in the best situation.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the best situation is going to be that. My worry is is that the streaming and everything else is that like I talked before is that where's the financial stuff is going to come through because again cable was TV market all that stuff advertising commercials all that type of stuff streaming unless you get like the lesser stuff which they are experimenting it seems to might be working for Netflix at least but people are going to be like real tired of the ads, and I think they're going to go right back to me. I think that people are going to either go right back to cable or whatever, or they're going to go, okay, we will take the higher pay thing just to get what we want. I think that's what's going. I don't know what's going to go. It's going to be an either or thing, but I think that if these just if that's just for like I said, that's just for like the entertainment stuff outside of um football or basketball, sports and everything. I mean, my worry is that once you get that streaming thing for like for sports or whatever, are people gonna be like, wait a minute, are we gonna pay X amount of money to watch a sports broadcast? Because again,
Well, again, it's like
I like Breach Report. I like it. And I like the idea, but in February, it's going to go up to $9 to watch it. It's going to be a separate service on HBO. I'm sorry, Max or whatever. Is that Netflix going to do the same for the eventual sports thing?
Well, it all depends. Like it all depends. Like I said, it depends on how many people are still already sticking on to cable just for the ability to watch sports, which I think the networks and the providers seem to think is the case because of the fact they were trying to milk as much money as they can from the sports broadcast. So for me, that's just a wait and see situation. We're not going to know until it happens. But I think it's possible, like I said, if you could get a sports streaming package that costs considerably less than what you have to pay for a full television streaming package that includes a bunch of stations and networks that you don't watch. Like I'm paying, I think, more than $90 a month for Fubo TV solely because of the Bally Sports add-on. It would be like 70 something either way. So yeah, if something came along where I could drop Fubo TV completely and get a local sports package for a fraction of what I'm having to pay for Fubo, I'd take that offer. Whether or not enough other people will do that to make it financially successful, again, that's just something I think you just have to wait and see because it could be the case. It might not be the case.
Yeah. And honestly, the one thing I would say, the smart thing that the Major League Soccer did is that they signed a 10-year deal of 10-year deals with Apple. So if you want to watch that, they could do that as well. So I think they pretty much had the smart idea. They were very forward thinking with that.
And you know what? Maybe that's gonna lead to a number of NBA of the NBA and MLB looking to Apple TV if they're gonna set them up as being the new sports network. If it works for them, that maybe they'll look at say maybe that's the way to go. And if that leads to Apple TV being the place to go for sports, maybe that's what they need to take it to the next level.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, ESPN Plus has been dragging behind Hulu and Disney Plus the whole premium package of what Disney is, and I wouldn't be surprised if they might just fold that in, or they're gonna just look like they're gonna drop ESPN as a whole, just to see if they can do that. Because I think there is a market for that. I truly think there is a market for sports. There always has been. People love it. They will watch any type of sport, be it college or a pro or whatever. There is an audience, even though I truly think some Major League Sports do a terrible job marketing their stuff, and they could be completely, they could be so much more popular, so much more engaged instead of just being happy, being irrelevant. NHL. But anyway,
It ultimately is going to come down to whether or not the the sports leagues can do the one thing that I think the entertainment streaming packages fail to do, and that is find the right price that the consumer will tolerate paying, and the organizations can make decent profit off of. I think that's where the Disney Pluses and the Maxes screwed up. But that's a whole subject for all the time that maybe we'll get into on a future issue of the lounge.
yeah, that's going to be very interesting. Um, you know, that's why I think it's going to be a very interesting couple of years from now, because I think you're going to see, teams do all this like local stuff here. I think it's going to be a lot of um, locals teams here, and a lot of stuff getting here. And you know what? It's funny because you say this, but you know, one thing I'll say this: at least pro wrestling doesn't have to deal with this type of BS. I mean, Monday Night Raw, WWE, AEW, and independents don't have this like real structured type of horrible stuff that they have to do just to have these RSNs and everything. If you want to watch the product, you can actually get the app or get whatever, and you can watch the product. It's simple.
That's also
That is
because
simple.
yeah,
It's very simple. And I
it is
look at
because
these
it is
NHL and NBA, all this other stuff here. I'm like, how are you going to grow the game if you can't get people to watch your stuff? I don't care how great your product is, how great if they're not going to watch it, either they're going to watch it by a terrible music sports, or they have to go there or whatever, or they're going to have to sell the high seas, and they're like, you know what, I'm not going to go pay for it. And how you going to? It's just like, again, these people who are very backwards thinking. And I think at the end of the day, it is biting them in the butt right now. And there are some leagues who are going to get it, and there are one league is probably not going to get it, and they're going to be rushing away to try to get it, and it's going to look like complete fools. But that's just, yeah. Go ahead, Rowdy.
It's going to be an interesting thing to for the next few years. What I was going to say is the one thing about wrestling, especially for an individual wrestling company, is that they're very similar to what the NFL has. You have maybe one, maybe two broadcasts every week or so. So again, that's something that a network like USA or TBS will be enticed to do, because they only have to set aside one or two blocks of programming every week and have the rest of the week to set aside their own schedule. So again, that's what makes the a wrestling promotion maybe more of an attractive live programming than have to, like I said, you expect that one network would buy into all of the entirety of an organization like Major League Baseball and have to manage 15 to 16 games every single day, 162 times in 6 months. That is pretty big of a chore to do. And so you can't expect on one nationally based network to handle all of that, which is why something like a regional sports network was pretty much a necessity for so many years for an individual sports club to ensure most, if not all, of their games were at least available on television for a local audience. So now it's just a situation. The number one question above all this is, if the regional sports networks like Bally Sports are headed to the graveyard, for lack of a better term, what is going to replace them? And that's something we're still looking to find out what that exactly is going to be.
Yeah, that's going to be the most interesting thing right now, because like I said, I sit and I watch, I sit and watch a lot of pro wrestling stuff. I look at like, sports and all this other things, and it's frustrating to me to see such good show. There's such good talent there, so much great like stories and all this type of stuff, But again, with the RSNs and everything else, you just sit there and you're like, they kneecap themselves. I mean, I think it was Urinating Tree's video about this and saying he just like talks about how basically you can't really how are you going to grow the game or anything when you have like what I don't know, like 10, like, like only 10% of people from like one, like, state that's not even there is watching, the sport or whatever, because they would like to, but it's like, sorry, we don't cover that game. Oh, we're sorry, we can't cover this. It's this confusing mess of this, of these deals and everything. And I do get reason why they are there at somewhat. It's because you want to make sure the local broadcast can have commercials and all that type of stuff. But now, mm, yeah, it's weird.
Absolutely.
I don't know what else can they actually you know I hope that they fix. I hope one day they actually start will fix this problem and actually do the stuff here to actually to make things more available. Because if you don't make things available, what's going to happen is that people like they will choose other situations. They will choose other stuff, and they're going to be like, well, you know, and the leagues will basically be irrelevant. And that's something that no one wants those because I'm a fan of majority of these sports. I don't want them to become irrelevant. I don't want them to basically just fade away to the point of like oh they're there and you know that's because I do like watching the baseball. So I love watching baseball, basketball, football, all this type of stuff. I love watching these athletes perform at their peak level. And when you have this is situation here where these television contracts that are not one basically forcing people to basically go to high seas, and then or you have this situation where they're just like the RSN's just like says, well, we're done, there's no money left, so on your own, have fun.
It basically comes down to, like I said, one thing, and it's something I also look at in almost all walks of life, from sports to television and whatnot. How much effort are you actually going to put into your product? And I think maybe that, yeah, they may have been. It's now going to come to a time where if you're not the NFL, you're going to have to work a lot harder at putting in more effort to, yes, promoting your brand and trying to let people know where your product can be viewed. And again, it's just going to be wait and see as to how much effort anyone from Major League Baseball to NBA to the NHL are going to be able to put in any type of effort into letting people know what the future is actually going to be.
Yeah, and I think we can end it right here because I think that we talked mostly about all this the situation that's going on here with the RSNs, and I believe once they get this figured out, which I believe the MLB is slowly getting there, and the NBA are probably going to have a really big deal. I wouldn't be surprised if they signed up with Warner Bros. Discovery slash Max and deal something with the Bleacher Report. And or to go all in with Netflix or whatever, which is going to be very interesting for them because they never did live stuff. They never did. They never have done any live stuff like major sports and such. So I expect there's going to be a lot of like mistakes and growing pains, but that's what this new stuff. I wouldn't want to say new media, but it's been around for a long while. So I could say the media we have right now is that there's going to be some hiccups and bad audio, video, all this type of stuff, but it will be how they grow from it. That's what it's going to be in the next couple of years.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being here, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dukect T here. Peace and love. I'll see y'all when I see y'all later.
Stay rowdy, my friends.